Hey YouTube, it's Eric. I'm gonna keep this video pretty quick. I just came across like a really good book. Just just doing a last bit of research tonight. I want to share it with you guys. Um, I mean, it's a book on Georgetown University. If you watched my last video, you'll see that like there's over uh 20 Georgetown educated officials in Trump's administration, and this is just this was a book written on the early history of Georgetown from 1789 up to 1889. So it's the history of Georgetown University right from the time when the Jesuit John Carroll founded Georgetown. But it's just very good history. I wanted to share the book with you guys. I'm not going to be posting on my channel for a bit. I'm going to be on a vacation with with family. Hope you guys have a good break too. But this book is free on Google Books, so it's a great find. I'm glad I found it. It's the memorial of the first century of Georgetown College, D.C., compromising a history of Georgetown University by John Gilmary Shea. You hit here on the left, ebook. You go down to PDF. Oh, Google's making me type in. Give me a second. Yeah, so you see here, this is the PDF here. I have it open up on my computer right here. I'm just gonna show you the PDF screen. Oh, there it is. This is a good book too. It's fully illustrated. There's tons of details, like tons of details. For example, there's oh, where did that name go? Oh, give me a second. Yeah, for example, like there's lots of details in the book on Richard Thomas Merrick, who is the lawyer for the Jesuit trained John Surratt, who was implicated in Abraham Lincoln's assassination. John Surratt's lawyer, Richard Thomas Merrick, is mentioned quite a bit in this book. He went to Georgetown University. He was the Democratic National. He was at the 1860 Democratic National Convention. He was the president of Georgetown, or his uncle, the Jesuit priest William Matthews, was the president of Georgetown University. His brother William Matthews Merrick was Jesuit educated at Georgetown, was a federal judge from Maryland. Um, his son William D. Merrick was Jesuit educated at Georgetown and was a member of the Maryland legislature. So this Merrick family and Matthews family is very prominent. But Richard Thomas Merrick is mentioned quite a bit in this book. John Surratt is mentioned as well. I'm going to show you. This is the book here. Memorial of the First Century of Georgetown. That's a picture of John Carroll, I think, on the cover right there. This is the University Library, University of California. Digitized this. I'll show you the table of contents. The chapters go by each university president. See, it's fully illustrated. There's a picture there, Georgetown on the Potomac. See there, memorial of the first centenary of Georgetown College, D.C. Pretty good book. I've been just going through a little bit of this. It's like 400 pages. It'll probably take me a week or so. You see, there's tons of illustrations. All the Reverend Francis Neal, Reverend Leonard Neal, and Francis Neal S.J. Leonard Neal S.J. was the Jesuit who came to see George Washington. Lots of information in this book on George Washington's adopted son, George Washington Parker Custis. Um, and just in particular, I've talked on my channel before about how the U.S. President John Tyler was very close to Georgetown. Like from page 217, you see right here, President Tyler has shown his interest in Georgetown College by his presence at the commencements. He evinced his confidence in its excellence by placing his son Tazewell Tyler as a student in the institution October 1843. Look at this is prominent here. There's lots of prominent lines in this book. Like for example, like a Jesuit is quoted in this book saying that Sir Francis Bacon was probably Shakespeare, for example. Um, We see here few institutions in the country can boast of having had among the scholars so many students nearly related to those who have filled the presidential chair. Relatives of Washington, Madison, Jackson, Von Buren, Polk, Tyler, Buchanan, and Johnson are to be found on the roll of Georgetown University. We'll add to that Donald Trump, who went to Fordham himself, but Donald Trump's children, Eric Trump and Ivanka Trump, went to Georgetown. Lyndon Johnson went to Georgetown, and Lyndon Johnson's daughter, Lucy Baines Johnson, went to Georgetown as well. So, and if you watch my last video, um, you see like the amount of Georgetown educated people in Trump's administration is startling. It's over like 25. Um, there's tons of good information in this book, so I recommend it. It's like 450 pages. I have to get going. It's getting kind of late, but I just wanted to. I just found this tonight. If you wanted, I'm not going to be making videos for the next couple weeks, so this is really good reading material. You'll get it's a lot of good inside information on what was going on at Georgetown University in the late 1800s, as well as the early 1800s. And you see here, like the interestingly, like the Catholic or how do you pronounce this? Oristitus Brownson, Ortez Brownson. I'm just gonna call him Brownson. This I found out about this guy from reading R.W. Thompson's book, The Papacy and the Civil Power. But this Brownson, he was a transcendentalist philosopher running around the likes of like Rolf Waldo Emerson and the descendants of Emerson, but Brownson converted to Catholicism in like 1840 from being a transcendentalist, and like he became like a violent like Catholic, like advocating that America needs to become Catholic. We need to like put down all like the heretics. But interesting is here, Ortez Brownson spoke at Georgetown, um, and he was a visitor to the college frequently. There's tons of interesting information like that. Tons. Yeah, I think I'm gonna end the video there, guys. I linked this in the description, but actually, I'll show you the what it says. But John Surratt is mentioned. Yeah, it says here the Honorable Richard T. Merrick expired the morning 22nd of June. I think this was 18. This is in the 1880s. But you see here, from the time of the trial of John Surratt, Mr. Merrick had taken part in many important cases, notably in the Tilden electoral contest. But you see here acknowledging that Richard T. Merrick, who was a professor at Georgetown and trained at Georgetown, was John Surratt's mayor, and the Reverend John J. Murphy, S.J., did a tribute to John Surratt's Jesuit-trained lawyer, Richard T. Merrick, and you can read uh, service in the book here. I'll show you the line on Francis Bacon. Where we go. I thought it was interesting. I've only gone through probably like 60 pages of this book, but it's really, really good. Just been browsing through it the last like 30 minutes. Um, oh, Francis Bacon's mentioned more than once in this book. Interesting. Let me see here. Let me see here. Okay, so this is the quote from this is quoting a Jesuit talking here. To that illustrious philosopher and statesman Francis Lord Bacon is attributed to somewhat a trite aphorism that quote knowledge is power. It is of no consequence that he did not say it, at least in so many words. He might have said it as he might have probably have written the works of William Shakespeare. So it's interesting that a Jesuit is acknowledging that. And Francis Bacon, I've shown, was also Jonas Valentin Andre, a supposed uh, Lutheran theologian who is also like a Rosicrucian mystic who like wrote the or the chemical marriage of uh, the chemical marriage of Christian Rosencreutz. That like supposedly Andre wrote this book at 15 years old, but I found out that Andre was Francis Bacon. But Yeah, that's all for this one, YouTube. This is really good reading. I recommend it. You see, like President James A. Polk was speaking at the commencement of Georgetown. President Andrew Jackson was speaking at the commencement of Georgetown. Even Samuel Adams, Samuel Adams wrote about how he despised like the papacy, and he talked about how like the reinstitution of the Jesuits was, um, like what was the quote from Adams? He said like the reinstatement of the Jesuits is like surely will bring darkness, death, and like despotism. I'm paraphrasing that, but Samuel Adams like went to Georgetown University in 1927, 1827. Um, yeah, that's all for this one YouTube. This guy's really. I read in James Roosevelt Bailey's book, A History of the Catholic Church in New York. James Roosevelt Bailey was the Archbishop of Baltimore in the late 1800s, and who is related to Presidents Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt, but James Roosevelt Bailey said that Father Enoch Fenwick, S.J., went to see Thomas Paine, one of the founding fathers, on his deathbed, which I thought was really interesting. But yeah, that's all for this one, YouTube. I recommend you check out this book. It's very informative. But that's all. Take care. Namaste.